But no one could fail to recognize over these last few years that the issue of illegal immigration has risen, to the surface, and there's been a great deal of emotion on both sides on this issue. Now, we as an organization, and I personally, we do not get involved in political questions. If government has the authority to do something, and it's a matter of, like, say, the state of California has the authority to impose a state sales tax, and it's a matter, and they want to raise the state sales tax from, I don't know, 6 or 7% to 8 or 9%, whatever it is. If they have the authority to impose a sales tax, then the amount of that tax is a political question for the give and take of society. That's a political question. We only deal with issues of governance in the Constitution. And so I looked at this immigration issue and I said, boy, we've got Minutemen and things are really heating up here. Is there a constitutional hook here that might be used to help solve this problem? And so we reviewed the Constitution, and what we found was this. In Article 2 of the Constitution, the article that deals with the powers of the President, it says, among other things, of course, that he is required to take an oath to uphold the Constitution, right? But it also says that he shall faithfully execute the laws. So, we have these laws on the books, appropriately, passed by Congress, to deal with, their immigration and naturalization laws. They're not being enforced. The primary reason, as I see it, is neither party wants to offend the Latino vote, so they're not enforcing the laws. Well, that's a good place to start. We don't like the laws, repeal them. But as long as they're on the books, we are a nation under law. Let's enforce them. The President is required to faithfully execute all the laws. This is not a nation under man and whim where they can decide, well, I think we'll just not enforce this. We don't want to offend this particular group or another. We're sorry. The Constitution is not a menu. We don't get to decide or choose which parts of it we're going to enforce and which parts we're not going to enforce. Of course, the Constitution's not a menu, but it's also true it just doesn't defend itself. It just sits there. Government's not going to defend it. The media is not going to defend it. Corporate America is not going to defend it. It gets defended if you and I and the people defend it. So we prepared a petition for redress of grievances regarding the government's violation of the faithfully execute clause. Also, we couldn't help but notice with the evidence supporting the fact that with stealth, the government seems to be developing a North American Union, on its way to a North American Union, establishing a North American Union, in effect obliterating the northern and southern borders. And so with Ed Vieira's help, there's just absolutely no authority in the Constitution. We did not authorize the government to do this, period. We did not do that. They have no authority. They can only do what's written down. Where does it say they can do this? And so it's not there. And so we prepared a petition for redress of that grievance. And also, the federal gun control laws are a violation of the Second Amendment. But also, it is absolutely, the absence of well-regulated state militias is absolutely unconstitutional. The Constitution says they are absolutely necessary for the security of a free state, that a well-regulated state militia is necessary for the security of a free state. We decided, look, if the people are going to be able to non-violently hold the government accountable, they're going to have to do that by, they're going to have to exercise their right to give and retain their money from the government if the government is stepping out of line and they're not responding to these petitions. But there's a problem in this country in that the government has basically forces companies to withhold pay from the paychecks of people and forces those companies to turn it over to the IRS. Well, how can people claim and exercise their First Amendment right to petition the government for redress of grievances? How can they enforce that right? Any right that's not enforceable is not a right. If you take away the ability to enforce the right, then you take away the right, right? So we decided to, so we petitioned the government, both the IRS and the Department of Justice, one more time, and we said, look, there's a problem with this withholding business in America. It seems to us, in our review, that there's no authority for this, but you do it anyway. And so what we're going to do, and the government isn't, a bunch of the questions we've wanted them to answer had to do with this withholding issue. And so they refused to answer the questions. So we submitted a packet of information to the federal government, and we said, please answer these questions about this withholding, the legality, you know, the right of the government to force companies to withhold and take away their right to hold them accountable. So please answer these questions. If you don't, I'm going to go around the country and I'm going to hand this packet of information out to workers and company officials around the country. This packet of information is designed for workers to give to their companies, to ask the companies to give it to their corporate attorneys to answer the questions that you, the government, won't answer. So maybe we can get a bunch of attorneys around the country answering these questions about withholding, this whole business of withholding. And so the government didn't answer, and I drove around the country. I had 37 meetings in 37 days. There was an average of 100 people, and I handed out these blue folders with this information in it, encouraging people to give it to their companies, paymasters, have the companies give it to their corporate accountants and attorneys, and let's get a bunch of accountants and attorneys across the country answering these questions. And we put all of that information up on our website. Those blue folders with this information, we handed them out free of charge. We told the government we would be doing that. And we put it up on the website so that anybody could download it. And who knows? Thousands of people did. And then in 2007, the government then said, you gotta, they went to court and they said, this under 6700, that there are legal tax shelters, and then every now and then there's a tax shelter that maybe goes too far and crosses some kind of line. And it's not really a tax shelter at all, it's some sort of scam. And it's a good law, because there are people who, law firms, American Express was charged with this, they set up these tax shelters for their wealthy clients, and they're really not tax shelters at all under the true meaning of the law. But anyway, the government was using that law against people like myself to stop the distribution of certain information that they didn't want distributed. So they charged us with, it's a civil matter, they charged us with promoting an abusive tax shelter by handing out this material. And we said, hey, we're just petitioning for redress of grievances. Needless to say, we got nowhere in the judiciary. So that's the third time that, and that case went to the Supreme Court too. We appealed it all the way up. And the courts will not only will the government not answer the questions, respond to these petitions for redress regarding their violation of the Constitution, but the judiciary is cooperating, in our opinion. The judiciary is cooperating in a collective decision with these other branches, a collective decision to deny us our constitutional rights. It's very clear to me the judiciary is highly politicized and quite corrupt.